Good? All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this evening's board meeting. With that, I'm calling our meeting this evening to order and would like to ask Mrs. Osborne, there you are, to start us with an invocation.
This is going to perhaps be a little bit different kind of invocation. How many of you have ever heard of this book? Maybe you have children, grandchildren, The Runaway Bunny? Oh, more people say yes. All right. One of our chaplains, the prayer today, I'm going to also do a little bit of connecting with chaplains, but one of our chaplains today led our oncology support group and began by reading a little portion of this book and making connection with it. I promise I'm not going to go through the whole book with this, but I do want to read one little piece that's connected, I think, to our life of faith and spirituality and prayer if you're a praying person. Once there was a little bunny who wanted to run away. So he said to his mother, "I am running away." "If you run away," said his mother, "I will run after you, for you are my little bunny." From the Hebrew Bible, we hear the psalm that has some very similar things. "Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in hell, you're there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night. Even the darkness isn't dark to you. The night is bright as day, for darkness is as light with you." Amen. Holy Spirit, blessed God, you know that this is a place of light and darkness, and we give thanks on this day that wherever we go, wherever our patients and their families go, wherever our staff go, you go as well. Amen.
Thank you. As usual, I'd like to recognize everyone who's joining us tonight to witness and see our board meetings. We do appreciate people coming and joining us. And along those lines, also everyone should have the agenda in front of you. It was emailed and circulated, and you'll have it in front of you. If you notice anything that's not there, we will have a section later for unfinished business. You can add something there if any board members see something that's missing. And with that, I'd like to ask Dr. Jan Keys to come up and give us a special presentation, as we do sometimes, on patient experience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have two other people I want to introduce, and I'll ask them to come up, Dr. Prayesh Patel and Dr. Bryce Cunningham. As they're coming up, I would just summarize. Each month we do try to spotlight the true unsung heroes who make Erlanger world class. They ensure that medicine and life work well together, and our patients are treated with the utmost care and compassion. Tonight we want to recognize these two physicians whose Dr. Patel specializes in neurosurgery, Dr. Bryce Cunningham from our orthopedic trauma group. They, along with an incredible team of professionals, saved this patient's life. This patient wanted to just say thank you in this video that was put together by our marketing department. So Paul, we're ready to show that, and I'll just ask you to stay up for just a moment.
The Georgia Highway Patrol is on the scene of a fatal wreck on I-75 in Whitfield County. One survivor has been airlifted to Erlanger Medical Center.
I suffered a chance fracture at the T12 in my back, and it compressed the spinal cord. I fractured a number of vertebrae below and above that, I think like 8 or something like that, and suffered some broken ribs, dislodged manubrium. My sternum was weakened, the thoracic cage was weakened, and shattered shoulder, and broke my arm. And I couldn't move my leg. I couldn't feel my legs. Couldn't move my legs. But I think I suffered a broken nose as well. It pretty much covered. I remember I shook his hand twice, Dr. Patel, and he seemed like from what my family's told me, he's a very decent fellow. I was just very well taken care of. And I'm just extremely thankful that I'm here. I feel very, very, I'm just thankful to be here. The injuries I suffered pretty severe, and I'm up walking around. I have quite a bit of feeling back in my legs. I can feel hot water on my feet. I don't have much nerve pain, just a little bit of tenderness from my belly button around to my spine. I've made from what people tell me, I've made a very, very good recovery. And I think that's due to the work of Dr. Patel and Dr. Cunningham. But when I got here, I could just move my feet like this and move my legs a little bit. I could hardly get out of the wheelchair and into bed, and now I can essentially walk indefinitely. I can just walk around. I mean, I can't afford to fall, so I would have to have somebody with me. But I feel confident that I could walk all day. We're going to follow up with Dr. Patel or Erlanger. We're going to follow up and make sure that I know what to do, and have plenty of adequate information about how to live and whatnot. I'm just going to keep on working, just doing what I have to do. I have a son on the way, and I'm really thankful to be here for that. I'm really excited to be a father, be able to raise him up.
This is for a patient, a big one. Thank you.
I think it's great to see feedback like this. It just kind of reminds us why we do what we do. And I'm glad you keep it going. I think he's taking your work expeditiously. This one-year approach just kind of shows that we provide world-class care. We keep it back, the walking, and keep it up. So clearly, you and I are just a small part of what went into this patient getting to where he is today. And a lot of things happen to get that patient here to the hospital and to the operating room and on to his recovery. So we're pleased to be a part of the world-class team.
Thank you very much. Always humbling to be reminded of what actually happens here, especially on a daily basis. Thank you very much. In your packet, you have our minutes from our June meeting. If anyone wants to take a minute and review those, if you haven't already, I'm just going to take a second to remind everyone, this technically is our September board meeting. We delayed a little bit. That's why we're meeting the first week of October. So just as we're thinking about timelines, and to give you a brief 10 seconds to look over the minutes. If anybody has any adjustments or edits to the minutes, let us know. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to put those minutes in the permanent record.
I'll move.
All right, Mr. Sattler moves. Do I have a second? Second. All right. All in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? All right, the minutes will be entered. And just so everyone knows, as we move through that, there's only, we have a light attendance today. There's only 6 board members, so everyone's probably going to get a chance to make a motion and second a motion. So don't leave me hanging for too long. With that, we'll move on to our committee and subcommittee reports. Mr. Haas, did Budget and Finance meet?
We did meet, and we received the audit report, which I believe is going to be reported on by Kevin, and we did receive the audit report. We're very delighted with that. And we do have a resolution to be considered in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Griffin is not with us tonight, so I'll look to Mr. Gibson. Did Planning Committee meet this month? Or since the last meeting?
Since, not this month, no.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Smart is also not with us, so I'll look to Jeff. Sorry, Phil. I did not realize you were on the phone. Then, Mr. Smart, did audit and compliance, did y'all meet this month? Okay, thank you. Apologies, I did not realize you were on the phone. We do have Mr. Smart on the phone with us. Mr. Webb, did legal committee meet?
Did not.
Okay. And Mrs. Mines, did management board evaluation meet?
We did, and I'll report on that in a few moments.
Okay, thank you very much. And the executive committee did meet telephonically. We don't have anything specific to report. Any unfinished business anyone wants to add to the committee or to the agenda for the evening? Okay, if not, we will start with our first resolution with Mr. Brooks, Resolution 1810-01, authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this resolution is authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement between Chattanooga-Hamilton County Hospital Authority and Regional Obstetric Consultants for OB Hospitalist Services. So a little bit of background on this. Currently, ROC, or Regional Obstetric Consultants, does our MFM coverage. That's our high-risk obstetric coverage at both of our campuses here in East. And our hospitalists for OB are pretty much done by many people in the community. We have over 20 different individual contracts. Basically, what an OB hospitalist does is they stay on site 24/7 in case there's an emergent delivery that needs to be done immediately. And so we have people that are staying both on the East Campus as well as here to provide those services, but it's very fragmented the way that it's being done. And we're looking to do this for several reasons. Currently, only the nights and weekends at East have an in-house physician. This will give us 24/7 coverage at East. Currently, not all unattached and triage patients are seen at East. This will allow for all of those patients to be seen. There are some issues around compliance and billing where our employed physicians cannot provide these services because of several compliance and legal things, because we're a hospital and not a private physician group. It eliminates double coverage that currently exists on L&D here at this campus, because right now we have both MFM and an attending OB here at the same time. That allows us to move some of that attending OB to those night shifts. It really elevates the system approach under one system that's really been looked at over several years, and it also benefits our teaching program. So there have been several years of different variations of the teaching program going through some difficulties, and this will really solidify the teaching program and give them a much stronger base to be able to have their graduate medical education here. The total cost of this contract, which again, it includes both the MFM, which we're already providing, adding in the labor or the OB hospitalists, the total cost annually is $4 million, and this is actually less than what we are paying today. So this program will give us a higher level of service, more comprehensive service at a lower point than we're paying today. And we have Dr. Dee Pasquale, who's our medical director and the interim chair of the OB/GYN department, and Lindsay Kraselic, who's our AVP, and Tracy Josephson, who's our clinical lead for the services here, if there are questions for any of them or for me.
It's my understanding that this would not have any positive or negative impact on our budget or financial statements?
Correct. It was all already budgeted in this year, just through a few different contracts and different vessels. So the total cost of this is actually less than what we're paying in an aggregate for these services overall. So it is a cost savings.
It looks like we took 2 bids on this project.
We went out for an RFP, so anybody who is in the industry that would have liked to have bid could have. But yes, there were 2 bids for the service, and this was the better bid, both from a contractual standpoint and monetary standpoint.
Britt, is the amount budgeted $4 million or $5 million? Because it was $5 million the other day in the meeting.
I think the amount is $5 million, right?
Currently it's 5.6 million,
Yeah.
and then the new expense is
Okay.
actually right under 4 million.
Any questions?
Any other questions, you may? Phil, you got anything? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting and approving this resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
All right. We now, oh, it's a fun one. We now have, yes, Mrs. Julie Taylor is going to come up and walk us through, looks like Don Muller's going to join her. Resolution approving the naming of our children's hospital.
So it gives me great pleasure to bring this resolution to you to approve the naming of the Children's Hospital at Erlanger's Outpatient Center. I think as many of you know, the project was a $40 million project. The hospital contributed $11.5 million towards that. The foundation was charged with raising $28.5 and we raised over $30 million. With thanks to a very generous gift of $5 million from the Kennedy family, which got them the naming opportunity to name the outpatient center. So we'd like to bring that to you, and I want Don to talk a little bit about exactly what that will look like on the building and also within the building. Yeah, if you want to grab it. You know where it is.
Well, first of all, I couldn't be more excited to be here. My job is to be like Vanna White and just point up here and show you what we're going to look like. As you know, Kevin put out a challenge many years ago for us to find a name. I told him it was more important to have money than a name, and now we have both. So thanks to Jim Kennedy and his family, they've consented to put their name on the building. So it'll be the Kennedy Outpatient Center. For the purposes of clarification, this is hospital-based property. All CMS regulations require that we mark the building in some way, shape, or form as a hospital-based building. So we'll be working to make sure that that is clear. We had some conversation around marketing. We didn't want to oversay it was a hospital building to redirect emergency patients in that direction. So a lot of thought has gone into this, but we'll make sure on all communications that go out, it's referenced as a hospital-based building. So it's a beautiful building. You guys see it coming up across the street. We're on time and on budget to have this up and running to see our first patients end of December, beginning of January. And I could not be more excited.
So this is an application showing children's, basically abbreviated for the reasons that Don just stated, that if people are coming down 3rd Street and see Children's Hospital and it's an emergency situation, we didn't want them pulling into that particular facility if it, indeed was, they were trying to get to the hospital. So this is the application that will be as you're walking into the outpatient center. And this is shown, coupled with the Children's Hospital at Erlanger logo in full. So anytime that you're in the Children's Hospital or when it's obvious that this is referring to the Children's Hospital, it'll just be the Kennedy Outpatient Center, but other times we'll couple it with the Children's Hospital at Erlanger logo.
Yes, sir.
What happened to the name T.C. Thompson?
So T.C. Thompson will be remembered as part of the inside of the building. We're at history wall. I have been along with Bruce Kaminsky with T.C. Thompson's granddaughter and great-granddaughter and had a long dialogue about what this is going to look like. We are going to move his bust into the building, and we will have a representation of the T.C. Thompson history as part of the history wall, but it will no longer be known as the T.C. Thompson Children's Hospital.
What did the daughter and granddaughter say about it?
It's really interesting. Our first meeting, they were pretty upset. By the time we got to the end of the meeting, I asked them one simple question, and I said, if T.C. Thompson were sitting here next to us, would he say to keep his name on the building or to go out and try to raise $20 million for the name of the big hospital? She'd say, he'd say take the money. And I said, well, that's why we're doing this. So they were supportive. After a time period, we're working with the great-granddaughter to make sure some of her artwork will also be displayed along with the history wall. As part of the evolution of that family. So I think we've hit a nice spot.
And I think it's important to note too that that honor was given to T.C. Thompson posthumously, and it was not because of a donation made by the family. So there was no monetary connection to that honor. It was just given to him because of his ability to fundraise with the Civitan and because he was mayor of Chattanooga.
I understood he was responsible for raising the money to build the first children's hospital.
I believe he worked with the Civitan Group in order to raise the money to get it started. This naming opportunity for the outpatient center is separate from the actual hospital name, so phase 2, when we go out, it's going to be more than $5 million. So if you're interested, Henry, it'd be the Henry Voss Children's Hospital. Just talk about it.
I was asked for the 5 million, and I
Graciously deferred.
Kennedy's was just quicker.
Yeah,
Yeah. Any additional questions?
Chad looks bigger too.
Well done.
Move for approval.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. With that, all in favor of adopting the name Kennedy for the Children's Hospital?
Thank you.
Aye.
It's not children's hospital, it's children's outpatient.
As outlined in the motion. Thank you. Any opposed or abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining? Okay. All right, with that, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We now are going to hear from one of our own trustees. Mrs. Mines and the MBET committee have been busy at work.
We have indeed.
And are you going to have your presentation up there?
I am not. In fact, I'd love to turn this off if I may.
Okay.
Not so distracting. Also gives me time to kick my shoes off so we can really get to work.
A classic Linda Moss Mines presentation.
Exactly. Okay.
Assuming that Miguel had her for class because she taught at GPS, but she's doing for this.
So thank you. We have 2 resolutions to report out of the Management and Board Evaluation Committee for board approval. Let me begin by thanking the members of the committee for their due diligence resulting in the creation of these 2 resolutions. You have the resolutions and supporting documents in your packets, and hopefully you've had a chance to look over those closely. Resolution 10-0803, a resolution recommending the adoption of the fiscal year 2019 Management Incentive Plan for eligible employees. The recommended plan supports the mission, vision, and goals of the hospital authority and was developed to reinforce performance objectives, foster alignment across the executive team, and to promote a climate of financial stewardship and quality health care. It has been developed with the assistance of our independent compensation consultants. You will note that the plan is 100% self-funded and will only fund at a financial trigger that spotlights the high level of performance that we envision for this health system. You will also see that there's been a shift in the metrics that reflect our increasing emphasis on quality, safety, and service, now accounting for 60% of the weighted goals, and with financials comprising the remaining 40%. Threshold, target, and stretch goals for each unit have been identified and are consistent across corporate, Baroness, East, and North, with slightly modified goals for Children's, Bledsoe, and Murphy, specifically crafted with their unique missions in mind. As you examine the documents, please remember that there was no payout for the 2018 plan. The target must be triggered. Again, the 2019 plan will only fund if threshold goals are met. Do I have any questions?
I would like to just point out 2 things. First, I'd like to thank the committee. This is one of those committees that I know as chairman I get to assign committees that people think, oh, management, but that doesn't sound like a. This is probably the busiest committee, and this work is very intense. So I appreciate and thank everyone who I tricked into serving on this committee. You'll think better of it next year, but it really is important work. I would also just like to point out that for 2019, and I'm kind of glad you didn't say the number because I get to say it now. For 2019, nothing happens. None of this kicks in at all until we hit $15.5 million. $15.5 million in excess revenue over expenses. That's an amazing number. I'm actually seeing nods from the management team. Y'all think you can actually do that? That's really ambitious and really impressive. That would be a very meaningful year.
I do not doubt at all that they will make it.
Well, that's the wonderful, the mousetrap of this plan, which is great, because nothing happens until we hit that number. And at that point, we will have a very financially viable hospital. So, thanks for signing up.
How is that metric, that $15.5 million determined?
Britt?
I would defer to Britt on
Yeah.
that.
15.5 was the budget, so that's the bottom line budget that was approved by the board back in June. So that's the minimum threshold that we have to meet budget, and then once we exceed budget, that's when the plan starts funding itself.
So it's off the budget?
Yes, that's correct.
And so that is a movable metric based upon the budget each year?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's all based on budget, and then you have to exceed the budget
To fund it.
to totally
Okay.
fund the plan. And if it's not, so you do it $1 more, there's only $1 in the plan. If there's another 20 million, it easily funds the plan.
But not the whole 20 million would go, the plan would just fund.
Because, right,
And
then it has to fund, then you have to go through all the other quality metrics that the board set up in this.
Which is why, to your point, Michelle, we do this on an annual basis.
We do. And we were very careful in the consideration of what the balance of those thresholds would be for quality and financial.
And just as a point of historical reference, 5 years ago, I don't know exactly where it was, 5 years ago, the metrics that we looked at were, I want to say 75% financial when we were
70-30.
70-30, and we have been on a very steady march, moving away from just financial goals and towards quality goals, which I applaud. I think as a hospital, you'd love for everything to be focused just on quality, and that's a goal. You obviously have to have the financials in order, but I think that's we finally,
be solvent.
this is the tipping point. It was 50-50 last year, and now it's fully
60-40.
more quality than
You know
financial.
what the percentages are?
60/40.
60-40.
And
60/40?
you'll notice in the packet that you were given, depending on the hospital, is where that 60%, how it's divided.
Okay.
So
among
that's
categories.
60% on quality safety service, 40% on financial.
I hate to ask a lot of questions, but
Keep going.
and $15.5 million is an overall, combined, whatever, all the various. And then it goes down to the individual, at the individual level at each particular operation.
That is correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But the operations of the individual ones, even though they've met their metric,
Still.
they don't participate until such time the overall. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Because the
It's technically got sort of two financial
Yeah.
triggers. One, the
Yeah.
thing has to be funded, then your individual unit has to hit your financial
Right.
metrics
Yeah.
as well.
And
However,
that
this
was
is-
very purposeful in an attempt, as always, and what we see happening right now, but to maintain that partnership all across the system. We're all in it together.
Yeah, the system has to be financially healthy before, even you have some departments that may be healthy, some not. The system as a whole has to be healthy.
You haven't mentioned it, but for the year that we just ended, there was not a payout
That's correct.
because it did not hit that funding goal.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Even though a lot of our quality metrics and other individual
Were met.
were very well met, the thing didn't pay for itself.
Correct.
And that's sort of, historically, those were handcuffs we put on ourselves to make sure we didn't have a incentive pool that was paying out in a year where we lost money as a system.
Well, we didn't lose money, but.
No, we didn't.
but-
We just didn't
but
hit the goal.
We set a goal of $5 million and we didn't hit the $5 million goal.
That's correct.
So there's no
Exactly.
payout at all.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Correct.
Regardless of what the metrics.
That's correct. That's
correct.
Came up to.
Because if you look at the outcomes, there were several quality measures that we actually exceeded the goals. But since we didn't make the first barrier, there's no payout.
So there's two triggers. It's, you have to have budget, and you have to have an excess of the budget to actually totally fund the pool.
Right.
And neither one met.
How many people is in that executive pool?
So, well, the total plan covers about 235 people.
235. Okay.
That's not all executives, that's executives.
Well, I
plus other
understand, but I'm
management.
just, the pool of people that
The
would
pool
be
is
considered for that.
approximately 235 people.
Yeah. Now, let me ask this question. For this current year of 2018 and 19, what did we put in there for our employees as far as a bonus payment or pay raise?
We put in a 2% average across the board, and then there was a market adjustment money put in for various job titles or jobs that you have to address because of market pressures. So there's a inflation or cost of living hospital-wide in it to be effective the first full pay period of January. And then there's a lump sum of money that we put into the budget to handle these one-offs of these jobs that are market-driven, and we have to address that or we have turnover in those staffs.
Now, last year, if I remember right, we paid a $400 bonus
That's correct.
to all the employees.
That is correct.
Are we doing that this year?
Not with the fiscal 18 results, no.
And the reason we came in at the point that we did in terms of profit was because of the EPIC program and the expenses, the horrendous amount of expenses, $19 million that we had relating to the EPIC program.
Yeah, in addition to the $100 million that we spent in capital, we had $19 million of operating expense that we incurred in fiscal 18 for that one issue, the EPIC.
Yes, a big part of that was training.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah, and the 19 could not be capitalized, it had to be expensed in the period that it occurred.
And we were also, if you recall, we were running 2 systems at the same time as well. We was running the old system, and that got shut off June 30 of this year. And then we had to run the EPIC, and you don't start the EPIC November 1 when live. We had to start it July 1 to get it ready to go live. So for the entire 12 months of fiscal 18, we were running 2 IT systems from an operations and system support simultaneously.
By not having the $19 million of expense in this year's budget, 18 to 19, that's why you think you can hit $15 million of profit.
Yes, and the continued strategic plan.
It's all over, it's written out on every page.
Okay. I just want to make that clear.
You are correct, you are correct. Because those are considered one-time expenses associated with the implementation of EPIC.
Any other questions?
You did a good job,
I think it is worth, sorry to be detailed, one
No,
more point.
please do.
Technically, this, paying the team and the executive stuff, technically this is in the purview directly of the
It is.
CEO. We like to be a little bit more transparent around here, and Kevin does this with us in an advise and consent, but we just tie it all together and we make sure we're on the same page. So I just want to be very crystal clear about that this is technically falls under Kevin's roles and responsibilities. Right, his purview. He just refers it to us, we advise, and it works really well as a way to do it. So we're totally involved in it. He gets a lot of feedback from us. We get to act as a really good board and have that good. I think that's worth pointing out. I
think that's very true. That's continuing the partnership in many ways. Well, if there are no further questions, then MBAC recommends the adoption of the 2019 Management Incentive Plan.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. We have a second. All in favor of adopting this plan as laid out by Mrs. Mines? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to the next
Let's
item.
move on to Resolution 10-08-04, a resolution to amend the employment contract between the Hospital Authority and Mr. Spiegel. In consideration of the expanding footprint of Erlanger Health Systems across our region, the increasing financial growth and stability of the organization, and the recognition that leadership is paramount in the accomplishments of our vision and goals, MBAC recommends that Mr. Spiegel's contract be amended to reflect a $46,000 increase in salary, retroactive to July 1, 2018. Again, this recommendation was made after careful consideration of all factors and in consultation with our independent compensation firm. Do I have any questions?
It's retroactive back to July 1?
It is.
Which is when our
And
fiscal
what
year
is that
That's
customary?
standard. We tend to always do this with luck in October. It has occasionally been November, but it's always retroactive to July 1.
And what percentage is that?
It roughly comes out to about a 5%.
Any other questions? All right. I will-
If not, MBAC suggests that the resolution be voted upon and passed.
I'll move.
All right, so moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? All right, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Mines. All right, the next item is revised board committee assignments. This is something we do from time to time. I am glad to answer any questions, but effectively we are adjusting, Dr. Engel is our newest trustee, adjusting his committee assignments to fit more in line with where we think we can all be most useful, and replacing a couple of the doctor appointments. We have some committees that by our bylaws require medical staff participation, and we've had some of those medical staff leave us, and so we need to replace and adjust those. We'll be adding Dr. Jesse Doty to the Budget and Finance Committee, and we'll be adding Dr. DePasquale to the Planning Committee. I believe those are the.
No, reverse.
Am I have that backwards?
Yes, Dr. Doty is planning and Dr. DePasquale is budget and finance.
Okay, then we need to adjust this. Okay, so we're putting Dr. Doty on the Planning Committee.
That's correct.
And Dr. DePasquale on the Finance.
That's correct.
Budget and Finance Committee. So the exact opposite of what you see in front of you is what we're going to do. Thank you for the clarification, Greg.
There's no resolution needed on that.
We vote on it as a board, just to sort of affirm it. We do this with all committee assignments, so it's good.
I'll move.
Yep. We have a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstaining?
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
We made some changes this year to the board's participation with the medical staff on some of their committees. I didn't understand exactly what we did there.
Yeah, we did away with
the Joint Conference and Accreditation Committee.
And we combined it to the first hour at the closed session of the board meeting. So credentialing could be done more efficiently with the participation of the executive committee of the medical staff.
Well, are there any board members on any of the medical staff committees?
No.
I'm not aware of it.
Other than Dr. Sizemore, who is.
Well, I mean, okay.
So the
Should
MEC,
there be?
that was the duties of the joint conference, Mr. Hollis, the duties of the joint conference were delegated to the medical executive committee. And the medical executive committee now reports up directly to the board through the officers in the closed session.
And that's
by bylaws.
That is by bylaws.
And so remember, that's where, so we go, after this meeting, we go upstairs and we do our credentialing in the closed session. Then we do any other closed session items that we need to cover. Then the month is over, and then we actually start the next month with the replacement of the joint conference, which is the closed section of the joint conference. But we didn't pull board members off of any other medical staff committees.
They were never
They were never there.
Should there be?
I think there's
Mr. Hollis, historically, the Joint Conference Committee, to your question, was specifically, as I recall, to address that concern that there was not a forum for medical staff and board members to collaborate in a single committee. The one thing that I've heard routinely, and Greg, you can speak to, that nobody liked that committee. It was probably the most despised committee that we had, both on the medical staff side and on the board side. So your question is a great one. It's a philosophical one that the board can consider. We did just change that, but you know, there are no other committees that where there is that direct interaction between medical staff. I just want to give you that history. There are probably some folks some folks' eyes twitching just by hearing you say that, just so you know.
But I think it's a very valid question that we should consider.
Yep, I do too.
But just so you know, when the latest revision of the bylaws.
Which
in
bylaws?
The authorities bylaws, excuse me, thank you, Jack. The latest revision was with the consent of the officers and the MEC, which afforded by the authorities bylaws, afforded the officers a direct forum with the board. That was intended to supplant
You mean the
joint
medical
officers of the medical staff.
The intent of that was to create a venue where the medical executive officers and the board, this board, would have direct interaction.
And that was
met regularly.
And met regularly as part of the standing. Because where we ended up with joint conference was, it was reviewing cases that people had seen 5 or 6 times by then. It was very poorly attended, and now we could at our discretion, at any time, we could reinstitute it and have a different agenda with it, and try and.
I guess the question I got is, does medical staff feel they're not getting their issues brought before the trustees?
And that's a valid question. Medical staff was involved and actually approved the language. Actually, the quid pro quo for getting rid of the joint conference was that the authority adopt bylaws guaranteeing them the forum with the board in that session, Mr. Sattler. So if they're not getting the forum, then that's a discussion that they would have with their officers.
Well, I think I can speak to this. I think the attempt was to create that avenue for them to have more access to the board. And if that's not being accomplished, we need to look at that and adjust accordingly. I completely agree.
And as opposed to 3 or 4 board members, they have the entire board in that forum, which was seen as a plus at the time.
If it's not working out that way, we
Absolutely.
obviously need to reconsider and readjust, for sure. Any other questions? Okay, we do have our informational items as always. Britt will be available. Dr. Sizemore's not with us tonight. Is there anyone else here that has a medical staff report?
No.
No, okay. All right, Dr. Shack, your dean's report, please.
Thank you.
Do you have anything for us?
Thank you, Chairman Studer. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board. There's a lot of things going on within the School of Medicine here in Chattanooga. A lot of exciting changes within the leadership of the academic faculty. As I reported last time, we've replaced the chairs in urology and pediatrics. We still have 3 search committees active. The Family Medicine Search Committee had their final meeting this afternoon, and they will be forwarding to me and Mr. Spiegel 2 names for us to consider as a selection committee. And we will, Mr. Spiegel and I will meet tomorrow to make our selection for the new chair of family medicine. So that should be moving forward fairly quickly. We also have active searches in OB/GYN. As you all know, from you heard earlier, Dr. DePasquale has very gamely stepped up to take over the helm of that in an interim capacity. He is certainly the strongest internal candidate here on this campus. We have advertised the position nationally, and we've had no other applicants as yet. So we think we're going to go ahead and arrange for the committee to interview Dr. DePasquale, and then if there's no other objections, he will probably be forwarded as the candidate to become the new chair of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. Orthopedic search committee is just getting started. They've had 2 meetings. They have requested a list of candidates from the search firm. The search firm is now scouring the country for suitable candidates. They should get back to us within the next several days with a list of candidates. The committee will then review those and select the ones they want to interview. They may decide to video conference interview initially and then invite the finalists to campus for an on-site interview. And then the other committee is for the plastic surgery chair, and that committee has met once. We do have a strong internal candidate, and we have been given permission, because it's such a small department, from Memphis to just do an internal search for that committee. This is something that Mr. Spiegel and I have talked about at length, about what the criteria for the selection of the new chair should be, and we will come to resolution on those issues and be sure that that moves forward in a fairly timely fashion as well. So A lot of stuff going on in the chair searches. We also, Mr. Spiegel and I spoke earlier this week, and I met with Dr. Panda, our Dean of Student Education. We are planning a recruitment trip to Memphis to meet with the M1s and M2s, the first and second year medical students, to try to and convince them to come and do their clinical clerkships here on the Chattanooga campus. We'd like to increase the number of UT students that come here for their clinical training, and we think we can do that. We think we have a very attractive package to offer them. And the other, just along the lines of what Mr. Studer was talking about at the end of his presentation or the discussion, I know that the medical staff does have a mechanism for access to the board, but the academic leadership, the department chairs, program directors, don't have the same access to the board. We would like to establish something along those lines. And you and I, Mr. Studer, have talked about this a number of times, and it's always kind of been lots of roadblocks, and Jeff and I have talked about it as well, but we would like to create a mechanism where the faculty, the academic faculty on this campus have some access to the board as well, to discuss issues related to medical education, both undergraduate medical education as well as graduate medical education. So that's something we'll look forward to in the future. And that would conclude my report, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Dr. Shack? Well, thank you for that, Dr. Shack.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Mr. Studer.
And your suggestions, will obviously look forward to that as well.
Thank you.
How many students do we have?
Currently, today, there are about 75 students on this campus, mostly third years, but some fourth years. Now, not all of those are UT students. We have a number of visiting students from other campuses that come here as it's really kind of like an interview. They're coming to do a rotation here as an audition, really, to be offered a residency position at the next match, which will be next spring. So we have, I think of the group that's here now, it's about a 50-50 split between students from other medical schools throughout the Southeast and around the country, but mostly from the Southeast and from UT.
How long do they stay here?
It varies. I mean, there's a handful of students that will spend their entire third and fourth year here. If they're from here and they can stay at home, we provide housing for them, but not for the full 2 years. So most of the students come and do a few rotations with us, and then they go back to Memphis, or they may choose to go up to Knoxville and do a rotation as well.
Then how many residents do we have?
We have 189 residents.
Residents and fellows.
Yeah, residents and fellows, postgraduate education slots.
189, so we're looking at something around 250 doctors coming in here.
Right, we want to recruit these young physicians and physicians in training to come and train with us here at Chattanooga and at Erlanger, so that we can then recruit them to stay here in the area with jobs that we can offer them in primary care and in specialty care as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shack.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Mr. Spiegel, your report for us, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm going to outline Mr. Haas's comments. The audit firm of Pershing Yoakley came here. I had my CEO meeting with the audit partners. We finished the year with $38,316,438 million for EBITDA margin. Net income from operations was $1.719 million, and net income after all depreciation and expense was $526,900. Doug Arnold, audit partner from Pershing Yoakley, indicated that we significantly increased our investment in the infrastructure of this campus. He also noted the strategic growth that this organization came, and he also pointed out this was the largest net revenue growth hospital that PYA has seen throughout the United States in all of their audits. We grew our net revenue 13%. I also want to point out that this is a significant pattern of Erlanger growing its net revenue between 13 and 15% for 5 straight years. We are the fastest growing healthcare organization in the state of Tennessee. And he did want us to acknowledge that it was a clean opinion. And so congratulations to the finance and all of operations for a job unbelievably done well. I'm going to go over a couple of items that really made this year special, and it is the best year Erlanger had in its history. We implemented a system-wide electronic medical record, an investment of $100 million in capital and approximately 19 million in direct operations for that year. That's a huge lift for any organization. And why did we do it? We did it for patient quality and patient safety. That's why we went. You don't get reimbursed more money for doing it. You don't get any gold ribbons. Actually, you probably step on more toes during implementation and miss a couple of bills going out the door. Why do you do it? Why do hospitals do it? We did it around the exact same time Vanderbilt upgraded to Epic as well. You do it because of the overall strategic importance of patient safety and patient quality. That's why you do it. You don't do it because you're going to get more money because you don't get a penny more. You do it because you believe this will strategically place Erlanger in the best position so you can get the right data, so you could help patients and strategically align with other hospitals across the state. We also are the 10th largest public hospital in the United States, as published in Modern Healthcare. And this year will be the first time we have exceeded $1 billion in net revenue. Our budget is $1.1 billion. And we will be providing this year $120 million in uncompensated care. That's an unbelievable lift and a tribute to what we do for this community. And we have been informed by the Chamber of Commerce that we are the largest employer in Chattanooga and the Chattanooga region, as we now have over 8,000 associates. Erlanger has an economic impact in this region of in excess of $3 billion. And we are noted as having the 7th largest emergency department in the United States, as published in Becker's. This year, we have hired new 1,799 new associates, including 364 registered nurses, 151 graduate nurses into our system. The following investments of $10.4 million were made in fiscal 18. Associate raises of $5.2 million. Market adjustment raises for our associates of $500,000. We gave out an additional $450 in associate bonuses, which cost us $2.2 million. And education at university level and continuing education for our associates of $2.4 million. Capital investments of $45 million, and we will invest an additional $26 million in capital in fiscal 19. In 5 short years, Erlanger's total capital investment into the infrastructure and technology is $243 million. Just to mention a couple of projects, Children's Ambulatory Center.
Your conference call will end in 10 minutes.
Children's Ambulatory Center of $40 million. Erlanger Behavioral Health Hospital of $25 million. Erlanger's Orthopedic Institute of $12 million. Erlanger's Heart and Lung Institute of $16 million. and Erlanger's East Hospital Comprehensive Cancer Center of $14 million. Probably one of the most innovative projects in the United States is our combined heat and power plant infrastructure of $13.5 million. Volume growth enhancements, #1 position in the overall market. During the past 5 years, the market share in our primary care service area grew from 37% to 43%, an Erlanger all-time high. During the past 5 years, the market share in our region, including Hamilton County, has grown from 28% to 34.3%. Commercial pay utilization is up 5.2%. Erlanger Medical Group outpatient visits grew, and overall, as we grow more physicians, but the overall practice of Erlanger doctors went up 23%. Inpatient heart and thoracic surgeries went up 166%. Clinical information systems, a foundation for patient quality and safety, an investment of $100 million with Epic, successful implementation of Epic launch, and we've trained over 8,000 users on the Epic system. Key acquisitions, we acquired Erlanger Murphy Medical Center, the critical access hospital, with $67 million in net revenue. We acquired Premier Health, expanded our FQHC, our health centers footprint, now to 3 locations, in addition to Dodson Avenue and the St. Elmo site. UT Erlanger academic programs, a growth of the Dr. Prezerno was named Associate Dean of Research. Dr. Charles Wood was named the Chairman of Pediatrics. Dr. Sudev Mindarata was named the Chairman of Emergency Medicine. And Dr. Amar Singh was named Chair of Urology. And we approved another expansion of the Cardiology Fellowship from 3 to 4 for this year. Quality and safety improvements, as we already discussed, successfully implementation of Epic, reduced mortality rates, meeting internal goals through multidisciplinary case review, and we exceeded internal targets for reducing readmissions. The Erlanger Medical Group initiated Medical Group Governance Committee, which recruited an additional 60 providers this past year. Foundation and development, a landmark. We exceeded the first phase goal of $40 million, 6 months ahead of schedule for the Children's Outpatient Center. Total funds pledged and were given are $30.5 million. Erlanger is contributing an additional and has contributed $11.5 million, yielding a total for the project of $42 million, and this will be open this December. Diversity inclusion. Chief of Diversity Elizabeth Appling is listed in Becker's Hospital Review as the 50 great African American leaders in healthcare to know. Erlanger System was the NAACP Ruby Hurley 2017 corporate sponsor for the year. Wall Street agency ratings. We exceeded all bond covenants for fiscal year 18, meeting with Moody's and Fitch this October and November for next year's rating agencies. But we have a proven track record of enhancing our bond ratings for 5 straight years. State of system communication, quarterly updates of the entire medical staff, monthly meetings with the medical staff officers, and monthly meetings to the medical executive committee, and monthly meetings to the graduate medical education committee. One of the top revenue growth hospitals in Tennessee and top quartile, we grew our net revenue for 92% from fiscal 13 to fiscal 19 budget. and we are the largest multi-specialty physician groups in the region, growing 258% from fiscal year 13 to fiscal year 18. So all in all, this was probably one of the most successful years this hospital has embraced. I salute all management and all the staff at this hospital for being able to execute, develop, and implement projects that actually other organizations have a huge amount of difficulty going over budgets, delaying projects, and we have a proven track record of handling multiple projects at the same time and being very deliberate and successful and strategic. I believe next fiscal year will even be stronger. Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from fellow board members?
Just phenomenal. I mean, really a great job by the entire team.
I'll just say from a patient standpoint, the Epic system and the coordination it has amongst the various departments and how it's utilized is a great enhancement instead of the individual stuff that you would get. And so I feel like from a patient standpoint, it's coordinated things a whole lot better. Okay?
I'd like to ask, this is, you may not know the answer, I'm going to ask you, Britt.
But we don't know.
Well, no. Some other systems, I think specifically MD Anderson and Vanderbilt have rolled out their own Epic systems. What kind of, just order of magnitude, what kind of hit did they take on the bottom line in the year? I mean, were we?
Oh, yeah, you can see that Mayo actually.
Mayo, yeah.
Yeah, they had over $100 million loss.
Right.
And
that they attribute to their Epic.
Oh, yeah,
rollout.
yeah, and then Vanderbilt, just in Beckers recently, this article is about $64 million loss.
So, and I say that not to pick on those two wonderful institutions, that they do wonderful work. It's really hard to sort of give praise for a negative. I know there have been problems with the Epic rollout, but given the magnitude of what could have happened, what you kind of told us might happen,
What really happened was positive.
right? And what really happened was flat to. Oh, that's Phil calling back in. I think. Did it answer? Phil, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to call. I just want to lift that up because I know that I don't know if Dave's here tonight, but Dave and the team. I know there have been bumps on the road. It hasn't been the smoothest sailing, but compared to what it could have been, I want to personally lift that up and say congratulations.
What was kind of cool is watching a team work together when they hit those bumps, because again, I don't think you'll find any hospital that went through a transition. Remember, we did the Big Bang Theory. In fact, all hospitals went live on the same day. So, so if you put it in perspective, there's no one that has done a smooth conversion of any IT, whether it's Epic, Cerner, McKesson, whatever. But I do have to say, I was at awe of watching the team work together when you hit those bumps, because we anticipate there's going to be issues, but it's how you respond to the issues and how quickly you look at it that determines how well your team is doing. And I just wanted to publicly thank the team, because they did a tremendous job of responding to those issues as they occurred. And again, I think as Mr. Sadler mentioned, the patient is the one that's the winner from this, because it is truly all the way from the admitting to the clinical record to the mobility of that record to the billing. It is all so much more better than where we were. So I do congratulate the team for a job well done.
Well, I know they're all watching on the YouTube channel right now. So, when they get in the morning, watch the YouTube. But no, thank you very much. Any other comments?
Your conference call has ended.
Oh no, I need to. Just right when I. Well, he made the mistake of dropping off the call. I'm going to assign a little bit of work to Phil here real quickly, and Greg, maybe you'll let him know.
There's a lesson.
There's a lesson. Never be late to a board meeting. You get put on committees and signed up for things. I do, before we go upstairs and do our credentialing, I will point everyone to our upcoming meetings. which are sooner than they normally are, because remember, this is the September, so we've got our October committee meetings coming up pretty soon. And at our November meeting, this is just a heads up, at our November meeting pursuant to Article 5, Section 2B of our bylaws, of the bylaws of the Board of Trustees, the board is authorized and obligated to elect from among its members, its officers, and executive committee for the upcoming calendar year. At our meeting in November, I don't know the actual date, so I'm going to leave it blank. In our November meeting, the board's current officers will present a slate of candidates for consideration for each of the following positions: chair, vice chair, and secretary. As set forth in the bylaws, the board is authorized to accept or reject and vote at its annual meeting next month, which will be, I can read this next month, but in our November meeting, any or all candidates recommended. Also, any trustee may submit candidates for each or any of these positions to Phil Smart as secretary beforehand and or from the floor at that board meeting. So any suggestions for that will route through Phil, who does not know he's been assigned this, but he did it last year, so it shouldn't come as any surprise to him. And Greg, will you please carry that to Phil? He's I don't want to give him a hard time. He's recovering. He had a knee issue, so he's extensive knee. I think he had some knee situations, and he's at home recovering. So he's dialed in, which should give him a lot of credit for that. So with that, we are going to go upstairs and do our credentialing to make sure our doctors can do what they need to do and be authorized to do such. So we will make our way upstairs. But with that, this portion of the board meeting is adjourned.